Welcome to a new episode of Outside the Panels with your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes.
Welcome everyone to another episode Outside the Panels. Yes, I'm still wearing my Dolphins cap. Yes, I still have hopes the Dolphins will make the playoffs. Admittedly, probably not this year, but still, there's always next, right? Join me around this time for our fantastic show. We have an editor, artist, creative work, writer extraordinaire who has a book coming out. It's in previews the back end of this month, January. We'll get to the dates in a bit. We are talking to Star Runner creator, editor, writer, Mr. James Watson.
Hey, how are you, Johnny? We need some fanfare. I need some Star Wars music or something. There we go. How you doing? Glad to be on your show.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank
Sure.
you for taking the time. So, thanks for reaching out to us over on Outside the Panels. Really loved having you on the show. The book, I have to say, is an absolute fun read.
Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that.
So well done on such an interesting read. And in case anybody's wondering what we're talking about, what we're going to do, we're just going to run the advert for which you can see on YouTube. All right, so we'll run some links in a little bit, and you can have a look at this. Here's the advert for James's book. He says, just clicking the buttons. Here we go.
I had hoped my life would return to normal after everything that happened before. No more craziness, no more car chases, and most of all, no one else knowing my secret. Things are better now. I'm working with scientists to study the alien tech recovered from the crash site. Together, we've built an amazing map of the stars, more detailed than any that's ever existed. I've also learned more about my origins from the messages my mother left me. But I can't tell Scott what I'm learning. I'm so afraid of losing him if I do. Now he's spending time with the new girl on campus. Something about her just doesn't sit right with me. Christine and I are going to get to the bottom of her story. I just don't trust her. But most importantly, can't shake the feeling that something's wrong. I sense a darkness hiding in the shadows, a hidden enemy just out of the reach of my powers. I have to find out what it is and expose it before anyone gets hurt.
There you go. Excellent. Good shout. So this book is due in previews in January. So that means it ships what, March time?
Yeah. So pre-orders, previews. It's going to open on the 26th. So it'll be issues 1 through 3 will be available for pre-order all at once. So you can all 3 issues. Those books will ship in March, right? End of March. And the UK, I think it takes an extra week or so to get there, but put on the slow boat to the UK. But and get your copies there. So we're excited about that. Just so everybody knows, if you've seen the trailer, this book is actually a sequel to the book that was released last year, Fallen Star, and Dark Star is the sequel. It's part 2 of the series, and that's what we're talking about. So obviously we're going to encourage anybody who sees the trailer and says, wow, this looks like a great story. I should go out and buy the first book and then check out previews January 26th. We're excited to see a continuation of the characters in the story, but you might be a little lost if you kind of pick it up in the middle.
Okay. Well, you know what? I missed the first volume, picked this up from Dark Star, and I've got to say, it just jumps straight in. You know, you kind of you go with it, and there's no need to explain stuff. It's really well written in the idea that you just go with the flow, and I think that's a really good way. Not a great deal of exposition in there about the past episodes or past issues. So there's that going for it. I really like that. Yeah. There seems to be a couple of influences in there that I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
When I saw the trailer, when I first watched the trailer, I was like, alien, holographic mother, sounds a little bit Supergirl to me. And then I read the book, and then it's like, throw in some Archie, throw in some Sweet Valley High. I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah, it's quite a mix, isn't it? It's a teen, very much a teen story. It's sort of Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets the sci-fi world of Close Encounters. It's
Oh,
we've got some great teen characters living teen lives, facing real life issues, but at the same time, there's secret UFO conspiracies going on, and our main character, she's a little over her head. So, yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix of genres, and there's a lot of influences. It's not a superhero book. It's very much a sci-fi book. The inspirations were all the great sci-fi movies of the 80s and early 90s that I love growing up and reading. And I'm a sci-fi reader, so superhero comics are great, but this book is definitely straight sci-fi. And Dark Star, it's all about dark matter, dark energy. It's very much a story that gets its roots in science and in the great adventures. So be prepared for that. There's no capes. There's no capes and masks. Just a lot of great characters.
So would that say then, if you're not into capes and masks, the Fantastic Four were kind of your jam back in the day?
Yeah, I love Fantastic Four. I read every John Byrne issue. I was a big fan of his, but I used to read them way back. I'm dating myself, but I read them in the 80s. I read them, even went back and bought the classic issues. For me, I love the story of family. I love the story of regular people dealing with issues of abilities way up above their head that they're forced to try and figure out how to control them and how to understand them. And it goes to the heart of this story. It's all about one young girl, a teen, who begins to see things emerging in herself, and she needs to understand, first of all, why, where it comes from. But then once she understands her origins, then you get into book Dark Star, where she tries to figure out, now that I know my origins, what do I do? And what's my destiny? And how am I going to get there?
Cool. Excellent. It's interesting because you say there's no capes. There's definitely the idea of the superhero is still in there. They're still making the right decisions. I suppose the ethos behind them. There you go. Check that out.
I love it. Thanks for the graphic. That's great. Yeah.
Oh, it gets better. Don't worry, it gets better.
Great cover artist, Claudia Inicelli. She's a great cover artist. She did Cowboy Bebop and some other great covers in the last few months, but she's a great partner on this book, and she gets the sci-fi elements. But there's our main character, Aurora, Monica Dark, who's sort of is she a villain in the back, and then some of her friends on the cover.
How was it? Because this is a fun family read, yeah. So I'm not going to say all ages, but it is kind of that tween market that would appeal to a whole range of different people. Personally, I read it. I loved it. I liked how it's light rather than the usual dark stuff. How hard was it to try and sort of install a sense of genuine science into a book that was kind of going light in tone?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Well, first of all, let me talk about the tone of this book. We made a conscious decision when we actually when we first wrote the screenplay. This is adapted from an original screenplay that was written several years ago and is sort of the basis of the story. But when we decided to make a graphic novel series based on the screenplay, we absolutely said our core audience is the PG rated, so in the United States, it's sort of that 12 to 18-year-old audience, the kind that Marvel targets, is sort of that audience that's, they're old enough to read and to think through things, but also don't want to go dark and gritty, right?
Agreed.
There's plenty of stuff out there that's dark and gritty. This actually it's more like Star Trek. It has a very optimistic view of people and individuals, an optimistic view of science and the universe, and that someday we will figure it out. And somehow, if we're good people and we care about each other, we're gonna figure out the mysteries of the universe. And so, this is one character, Aurora, who step by step figures out some of those mysteries. And so, we wanted to keep the tone where any teen could pick it up. Any parent would buy this for their teen, or any teen would want to be cool enough that they'd want to pick it up on their own. And we hope to keep that tone throughout the whole series. So Fallen Star, Dark Star, we have several books coming over the next 2 years. They're going to keep that tone.
How difficult will it be to maintain that sort of, I'm not going to say simplicity, but it's kind of, Aurora tries to see the best in everybody, even either I'm not going to spoil it, so I'll tell you what, if you want to find out what I'm talking about, go and buy the book. That's what you're going to do. But she tries to see the best in everybody. How difficult is that going to be? Because there is going to be a progression of time. Maybe not as no leaps forward. She's not going to go from being this 15, 16-year-old to being 21.
Right.
But still, those impacts of her world, both the pseudoscience and alien elements, as well as the kind of relationship she's building with her friends and with Scott, those are going to have an impact on her. How are you going to try and maintain that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's some great story elements that, in fact, Dark Star, the book you're showing on the screen, is where we begin to introduce some of those elements, right? So the element of dark energy and dark power is that in contrast to light, there's always dark. That's how you can see the light shine, is because there's darkness around it, right? So the idea that there are elements, evil and elements of selfishness and greed and power that may want to control Aurora, may want to control the power, may want to trip her up or kind of keep her from her mission and keep her and harm her friends and those around her. Those are key elements. That's life, right? When you start to grow up, you start to realize not everybody's your friend, right?
Yeah, true.
And so really this whole series is about Aurora trying to figure out who really are her friends, who really is her family. And more importantly, when she tries to figure out her destiny, sort of what is that scope, and we hope that people will understand, and she'll figure out over time. It's compassion and caring about others that allows you to get through and figure out who's really on your side. And if you show compassion in spite of great power, what do they say, Spider-Man? With great power comes great responsibility.
I don't know what they say. I don't know what they say in Spider-Man. What they say in Spider-Man? I'm not quite sure.
In the movie, but I would say in this series, if there's great compassion, that you'll find your destiny. You'll be able to know who are your true friends and who'll be with you to the end. And that's what she's trying to figure out. And to your point, she makes mistakes, right?
Who doesn't nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, with her boyfriend, with Scott, she makes some mistakes in the story. With Monica, she makes some mistakes. She trusts people that she shouldn't trust. It's all things that happen in life, right? Those are hard lessons.
Definitely. To be honest, it's that sort of relationship that I really liked. I liked the whole the kind of give and take between the characters. I know it's not aimed at me per se, but still, it's, for me, it was always about the core relationships between characters. It's like you mentioned Peter Parker and Spider-Man, for example.
Sure,
as soon as Peter puts on his Spider-Man mask, he's going to swing off into the night and save the day. Spider-Man never interested me.
Yeah,
Peter Parker interests me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's a great story. And see, we deliberately set our heroes as a group of teens, because I think teens, Johnny, are at that point where they're trying to figure out, just like Peter Parker, right, who they really are and what will they do with their talents and gifts and powers and all the choices they have. It's really hard making choices when you're a teen, and you have and you make mistakes. And it's very deliberate that this whole series, these kids, they're going to be teenagers this whole series. So they're going to make mistakes, and they're going to have to make tough choices and deal with the reality of life. So that's why I love what you said about Peter Parker. That's what makes him such a great character.
Yeah, exactly.
He's just like all of us, right?
Yeah, spot on. And I mean, you get different characters. I mean, Batman's all broody and grim and all that sort of stuff. But quintessentially, you've also, to lighten him up, that's why we've got Robin. Right. And two of the three Batgirls, the kind of so you've got
that's right, Batgirl.
I'm talking Barbara and Steph. Cassandra's not
the good ones. Yeah, exactly. You got the good one.
I like Cassie. Before anyone complains, I like Cassie Kane. I do, but anyone who knows me or listens to the shows or listens to my reviews knows how much I love Steph Brown. So, yeah. What can I say?
Oh, sorry. But there will be great villains. There will be villains introduced, and there are in this story a couple. One very powerful villain who comes as sort of a surprise. I'm not going to give it away.
Yeah, no spoilers.
No spoilers here. That's what you told me at the beginning. But that's going to be true of this series. That some folks you think are villains will be perhaps heroes. Some who think are heroes really end up being villains, and that's sort of the universe playing out good versus evil.
I love the old bait and switch. And I've been reading comics for so long, I'm surprised when it happens. And you surprised me, so there you go. There's a compliment.
Someone like you, Johnny, who's read comics your whole life, that's great.
It's Joe, I kind of every time I pick up a comic, I don't want to think about it. I want to just read it and enjoy it. Yeah. And if I'm pulled out of that for whatever reason, that's when things start going a little bit awry for me. But your book had me from page 1 all the way through, so I was really, really impressed. Really impressed. From a creative point of view, I'm going to say this in a nice way. You've been around the block. You've got some talents, right? I mean, did I read that you're an artist? You did art design on things like the Dragon's Lair. Is that right?
Yeah. So I started making movies when I was 8. Well, as a kid, making movies, but that doesn't really count in an interview like this.
Unless you're Dawson Leary, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, that wasn't me. But I started making movies when I was 18. I worked as an animation artist for television cartoons. Dragon's Lair was one. We worked on other ones like Turbo Teen and some other ones that are very forgettable 80s cartoons. But I love the layout work. I love designing a scene, setting a scene, creating characters, illustrating them. I should have gone into illustrating. I actually work in marketing, but I love illustration and design. I love movies. I founded a company called Atlanta Studios about 20 years ago. We did graphic novel adaptations of TV properties and movie properties. So people would come with us, hey, we want to create a comic on our sci-fi movie or our fantasy movie, and we would visualize it, either do storyboarding or full graphic novels. So I've seen a lot of movies and I've seen a lot of screenplays, and I've seen, I guess, what works and what doesn't. To your point, Johnny, some things work, some things don't. And also there's some things I really like. I really like fun characters. I like science fiction. I like sort of general audience sci-fi. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm a big Star Trek fan. I love stories and characters that go over time and we can really get to know and love.
All right then. Okay. Which is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Well, I tell you, favorite, probably the best movie is probably the first one. My personal favorite. I know it's controversial. My personal favorite, just because it's fun, it's pulpy, Saturday matinee. Return of the Jedi when I was a kid was my favorite.
You need to talk to my wife. Every time we watch Star Wars, she goes, "Is this the one with the teddy bears in?" I'm like, "Sweetheart, we never watched the one with the teddy bears in." Oh,
see, we have different tastes, Johnny. Different tastes. I was reading an article though today about Attack of the Clones, and I tell you what, in hindsight, that movie's gotten better in hindsight. So,
do you know what I think? I think the prequels as a whole have aged rather well, thanks to the addition of the extended universe.
Right.
Because without Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, you don't get the Clone Wars animated show, which was the last few seasons that were brilliant.
Brilliant. I love the Clone Wars. I tell you what, I cared so much about those characters. Ahsoka in the final season. I was like, how did they do that to me? How did they make me care so much? It's amazing.
And how did they make you care about something that you knew was going to happen? That's the thing. And you're like, because she's going to have to fall at some point. It's like, and then the interlocking with Anakin shit. Man, it was great. It was great.
So that long form storytelling of television is a real, in my mind, as I write the Star Runner Chronicles, I sort of think about that long form episodes, a season. Each book is a season for me of Aurora's adventures. And I'm like you. I love to see that. I love what that does to you emotionally. You really get invested in key characters.
Is that the reason why you go on 3 issues at a time then? Rather, is it because, I mean, from a shelf point of view on the racks, there's a lot of comics out there. If you're doing it one a month or one every 2 months, you run the risk of getting lost in the product, especially when you've got the big two pumping out event books left, right, and center. So going for like a block of 3 straight away, you're giving everybody the story boof en masse, right?
Yeah, I mean, we again, another conscious decision that we're really trying to put out. Let's say a book a year. A book is made up of 3 to 4 episodes. Each episode is an issue. Think of it as, you know, this season's Dark Star, and with 3 great episodes. And comic book shops, it's coming out in 3 books, and then it's going to be put in the trade. And the trade is what we sell on Amazon, what we sell through Ingram, and through all the booksellers, the retail bookstores, and the comic book shops. But really what we're trying to do is every 6 months try to tell a new story. Actually, every 6 months a new book is coming out. So we're trying to tell a new episode, a new chapter. Think of it as Clone Wars season 2, Clone Wars season 3. We're doing Star Runner season 2. Dark Star is season 2 of Aurora's adventures, and that's really how we look at it.
You see, you kind of, for me, when you explain it that way, I'm thinking Babylon 5. You know, so like Babylon 5, the first season's like Sign and Portents,
right?
And then the second season is like the Coming of the Shadows, and then seasons, and then so on and so forth. And then by the time you get to season 5, you've got the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's what we hope. When you read the 5th book in this series, you'll see how it all comes together. Our hope is that everyone's invested, but everyone gets the scope and the vision for this world. It's a world, it's a universe that has its own its own story, story, and its own science to it, and how it works.
It's interesting you mentioned, because I think reading the story, the kind of the impact that you want to tell story wise, I think if I was being super critical, I would say something like the some of the emotional aspects, you know, when the kind of things where she's waiting after Scott. She's, oh, will he ever love me? I think serves to distract, and that's why the twists and the bait and switch work so well, because you get caught up in this element, you know, and behind the scenes something else is going on, and you need to sort of split your attention a little bit to try and get both aspects. It's one of those, I think, books that you'll read firstly and you'll get all the emotional aspects, and then when you go back to reread, then the sort of like the overreaching arc will then start to sink in.
Right.
That's how I interpret it, at least.
Yeah, no, I love how you put that, Johnny. And by the way, those who look at this book, who buy this book, and this is their first one, which is like you, you're being exposed to a lot of characters, right? And so you're sort of mid-chapter, and I appreciate that you sort of get into all those characters, but we're trying to develop the world. Each of these characters has their own story, and some really get that story in Dark Star. Some get a little, not as much attention. Scott does not get a whole lot of attention in this particular story, but other characters do.
I mean, Buffy's an ensemble cast.
Right.
You mentioned Buffy before as a bit of an influence there. Fair enough, Buffy's in most of the episodes, but sometimes there's hardly any Xander, there's hardly any Willow, there's hardly any Anya, and that sort of thing. So it depends where the arc is, you know.
Right.
The whole like Spike love story, for example, that went on for like umpteen episodes and nothing else happened. But you know.
I think that's a great example. It's an ensemble cast, and each story has its focus and its theme. This one is about some certain conflicts that Aurora has to deal with to figure out.
Yeah, and they're not the obvious ones either. To be fair, as which do you prefer? Do you prefer doing illustrations and art, or do you prefer kind of pounding the typewriter and kind of getting it across?
That's a really great question. I'd say that I have a hard time letting go of the drawing board.
That was one of my other questions. You've preempted me.
Yeah, no, I mean, you pound it out because there's a story to tell, right? You're showing a page of the story from issue 1, and there's a lot that I want to say. I visualize it. I sort of, if you've ever written a comic, and you probably have, Johnny, there's a lot you want to say on the page and in the book, and so you try to hammer that out and get it structured. But then, boy, the fun part is seeing it come together, seeing the artwork, seeing the beautiful artists that put these characters and bring them to life. And I have a hard time letting go of anyone who works with me on this book. And there's great artists: Leo Cordero, Carlos Eduardo, our colorist Mohan. All these guys are Wilson Ramos Jr., who's done a lot of work for Marvel and DC. He does our lettering. Great team. I love what they put together. But I tell you, every page is I'm laying it out. I'm giving some notes and doing some thumbnails and saying, try this. This will make it impactful. I don't know if every page is a work of art, but I'm probably terrible to work with. They're great. They're patient with me, but I love, you have a vision, right? And you don't want to walk away from it. You can see some of the artwork and the pages.
You were what my mum would call a takeover Ted.
I'm afraid when it comes to the art and the layouts, I get hyper involved. I say, wait a minute, let's do this. This page you have right here on the screen is a good example. Just that it took us a little while to get all those elements of the story that Aurora is being told of her home world, and to get that right, took a lot of sketches. So
it's that top panel, this top panel here. There's just so much going on. And it's just, I've got to say, I love the colors. The colors, absolutely. I sometimes feel, and I'm not sure if this is a slight on anybody, and if it is, then I genuinely apologize. But what I will say, sometimes I feel that digital art doesn't have the same sort of depth. Sometimes,
yeah,
you can't say that about this book. This book, the colors are exquisite. They work really well, and it's not just like the grand panels that we've just seen. It's even going down to like the skin tones of Aurora on this middle panel. You can see kind of how there's differences in that. So that was really impressive. I really enjoyed looking at that. Cool.
Yeah, color is something that I did not want to skimp on. We have some great line art, but without a really talented colorist, it doesn't come to life. And I'm very cinematic. I'm a movie lover. I want this story to be cinematic. I want it to look and feel like a world you could live in. It's got its tone. It's got its tone. It's it's not gritty realism. It's sort of a fun, colorful story. But I want it to have depth. I want it to feel like a movie, like you're watching a really good movie with characters that you care about. And the colors make all the difference.
Excellent. Right, we're just going to take a quick little break from one of our site adverts. Let me see what we've got. I'll tell you what, why don't you have a listen to this advert? This is from the Old Timers Comic Book Show.
Do you want to find out what makes the professor do his happy dance? Check out the Old Timers Comic Book Show, only on the UCPN.
There you go, the Old Timers Comic Book Show, where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are. There you go.
I love that ad. Made me want to dance.
That's the theme song, man. So I'll let you in a secret. Every time we do the show, the professor does the little shimmy in his chair, and I got one of my guys to sort of record him doing the shimmy in his chair without him knowing. And then it's like, dude, this is what I've done. I'm sorry. And then we put it on an advert for him.
I love it.
We are awful. We are awful. What can I say?
That's great.
Yeah. So when you've talked about influences, we've talked about Sweet Valley High, Archie, Buffy, Supergirl, all that sort of stuff. We've talked about being a comic fan. Fantastic Four. What are the comics were you John Byrne? Are you a John Byrne fan across the board, or is it just certain characters that you kind of gravitate towards?
Yeah, I don't know if everything he took on was a masterpiece, but I did collect everything that he did on X-Men, which was my early introduction to comics. Just that whole strand with Chris Claremont and Terry Austin. I just loved everything he did. That again sort of dates me, but I think comics in the '80s had some. John Byrne was one of my favorites. I really like. When it comes to comics, for me, I like things that have that cinematic flair to it. So for me, I read the Dark Horse comics, the Star Wars comics. I read the Alien series that Dark Horse did. I just, I think there's a lot that, that doesn't really play into what we're talking about today.
No, but still.
But I always was impressed with how Dark Horse would take cinematic properties and create these new worlds and characters and just make it feel like it was really lived in. I like a lot of European. I collected Valerian.
Who else did I speak to that loves Valerian? Pat Mills. the 2000 AD guy. He
Yeah.
absolutely loves Valerian. He'll talk about Valerian the way more people talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
He absolutely loves it.
Well, I have a feeling that George Lucas probably read a little of Valerian too. If you, all you have to do is watch his movies and you say where he stole it from. But I mean,
Borrowed. Flash Gordon, Seven Samurai, Magnificent
well,
Seven. Sorry, how did they all come out? I don't know what that's all about.
okay, so he stole it from a lot of places, but Valerian has a lot of great. I just love the world building. I love the artwork. You know, so those things really stuck with me when I first started writing this comic. I first did a draft of this comic when I was 17 years old. I wrote this story, and maybe took a while to actually become a screenplay and then to become a graphic novel. But it's one of those things. This story just you want to keep telling it. So
I think not to put words into your mouth. Writing at 17 is different to writing when you're older, right?
Yeah.
So when you're writing at 17, you're writing about things that have happening to you right now.
Yeah.
Especially if you're aiming it like as a teen character. Looking back through the hindsight of vision of 2020, looking backwards, you can say, well, actually,
you
can see how it plays out, you know. So
yeah, I think what's interesting as an adult writing teen characters now is you can realize all the mistakes you made as a teen. In some ways, as teens, we get things right. We have a lot of, we're hopeful. We've got plans for the future, and that helps us. But writing as an adult, it's like I realized you make a lot of mistakes, right? We talked about this. I mean, Aurora is a normal teenage girl, even though she's got these abilities. She's got fear. She's got emotions. She's got a crush on a boy. She's got uncertainty when that same boy, is attracted to some other girl, and but also the fear of loss, the fear of losing friends, the fear of losing, your social status at school. All these things that are.
I was just about to say losing the status quo, because whilst you're a teen looking forward, right at this moment you're the king of your castle or queen of your castle, I guess.
Yeah, and so your reputation and sort of what people think of you is so darn important when you're a teenager, and that's tough to write as an adult because maybe you and I don't think that way as much. But when you're a teen and you're in it, you really care what everyone thinks about you, and Aurora's that way, and that's why it's really sort of fun to go back and think, what would you really think if you were a teen and you all of a sudden had this destiny. And they're so uncertain, and what people would think of you, and so I guess what we're trying to develop in the story is that uncertainty. Aurora, she may have abilities, but she messes up, and she may have ability to open up a star map like you have on this page here, but then doesn't know what to do with it. Where does it lead? Why did she do it? Sort of like
Dan, why did I do that?
I know sometimes Supergirl has she has her message in a bottle or whatever it is that tells her where to go, but Aurora doesn't have that. She's sort of building the pieces one by one, and there's no map.
It's funny because it depends which Supergirl we're talking about in essence. Because she's had loads of iterations to this point. I'm currently reading the Peter David Matrix Supergirl run, and again, teen, high school, doesn't know what's going on. So that's kind of like my immediate sort of like, I suppose, reference point when I started looking at this, when I started looking at Star Runner there. We're talking a little bit about art. You've said if you're very much a hands-on kind of writer, you kind of like to write and then give little thumbnails and stuff like that. Your artist on this project, and I apologize if I say his name wrong, it is my mutant ability to say names wrong. So there you go. Is it Leo Cordero?
Leo Cordero, great Brazilian artist. He worked with us on the Paul Apparel comic for several years, and then he was the perfect choice for this because he knows how to do characters. He can do spaceships. He can do action. He can do settings.
Was he the perfect choice because he put up with all your insane notes in the margins?
Yeah, anyone who can put up with that.
Not my words.
He's a true professional. He knows when to listen and when to just tell me what to do. But everyone on this team is great to work with. I love working with him. But Leo, with his pencils, he he gets it, and he tries for perfection. He's a perfectionist, and you can see on some of these pages the kind of detail he puts in.
But, the art is perfect, and I don't say that often, because I see so many books, and something distracts my eye, and that's it. I've gone. What I liked about the art of the book, you've aimed for a little bit older than all ages, right? And the art absolutely totally reflects that. So you respect the fact that these are kids doing kid stuff. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing excessive involved in this book across any point, which is why it surprised me when you mentioned Buffy as kind of one of the influences, because one of the knocks I remember back in Buffy days was, why is her skirt always so short and she's fighting vampires?
Well, interesting point. But I will say, there's a few short skirts in this is the story, but it's not about that.
Exactly. That's just the fashion of the character, right?
It's not gratuitous. This is not a gratuitous story. It really is one of our big distributors is Baker and Taylor, just to give you a sense, and they have bought the book to use in libraries and schools. Brilliant. Because you'll notice every issue has a little bit of science to it, right? And sure, we take off on what you could do with dark energy and dark forces, or exoplanets or whatever we happen to be talking about. But there's a science element. But it's also now we want these books to be able to be read by, teens, older teens. But it's not gratuitously violent. There's no nudity. Characters may say a nasty word every now and then, but it's very PG rated. Yeah. And generally, I quoted Buffy because Buffy was an ensemble story. It's about lots of great characters. Star Trek is another inspiration where it's a planet of the week.
Which
but it's an ensemble character. Whatever Star Trek you like, right? Whether it's Deep Space Nine or Voyager, and I'm sure you have your favorite Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Wars. I'm not getting on Star Trek. Damn it!
But Star Trek has an ensemble cast. It always has an ensemble. It's about a mix of characters, and in that way, Star Runner Chronicles, each of these books is about the ensemble, and so that's what we're going for. But yeah, we're very careful about the content. Because we don't want to put off anybody, but we also want to tell a really good story.
And I think you've achieved both of those goals massively. It's funny you mentioned about ensembles. I know it's not superhero related. We've talked about Supergirl. When I hear ensemble, I very much think of her cousin, Superman, because Superman's so powerful.
Right.
You need the ensemble. You need the Lois, the Jimmy, the Perry, the Cat Grant. You need all of that going on, don't you? And to an extent, the Aurora in this book is the only one with powers. Of her friends. So then it's her friends that serve to kind of ground her in that, in a similar way.
I love how you put that. They ground her, and they also center her on maybe some possibilities of what she could do. Like Christine, her friend, realizes, hey, you can do some things with your alien tech that maybe you don't know about. Maybe you want to try this or that. Scott may give her a perspective on it's going to be all right when she gets a little overstressed or whatever. So to your point, she doesn't know the extent of what she's got, but as she learns it, she realizes more and more she needs her friends. And Dark Star is the second chapter. It's a chapter where she really realizes, maybe I really need these guys around me because I'm not figuring it out very, very well on my own.
I laughed at some of the humor elements. So early doors, she gets like a C+ on a test.
In physics.
In physics. And the mate saying, well, your physics is your thing. How could you? And she's like, she gives that known superhero, like, I'm the Flash. I'm not going to win the race. Yes. I don't know if it was aimed to be tongue in cheek or if it was kind of like a throwback to secret identity stuff or whatever, but it just made me smile when I read it. So.
I think it's a throwback. It's a sense that, even though you got great abilities, you're still going to have to study. You have to do your homework, and we all hate that. And I hated that when I was 17 years old. I thought I was really smart, but I still had to do my homework. Well, Aurora is really powerful, but, You know,
So
if she stays out too late, she's still going to get a bad grade.
Yeah. A bad grade. Yeah. So the book is in previews. Let me just bring the cover back up for everyone so they can see it. The book is in previews on January the 26th.
January 26th. And that's when you'll be able to pre-order issues 1 through 3. So this book is going to come out in three episodes. Each book is 32 pages long. And then the trade will follow a month or two after in previews. So you can wait to buy the book, or you can, buy we're going to add some additional content. We put some special content in the issues. So if you buy the comics individually, you're going to get your money's worth, because we're going to put a few extras in there. So check it out.
Do you have plans to hardcover like part 1 and part 2, like Fallen Star and Dark Star?
Well, it's so
like encyclopedia them sort of thing.
Well, yeah, the goal. So I've got them on the screen here, right? So the goal is we're creating a library.
Let me just make you large then, so we can all see that.
So so the first book, I don't know if you can see it on the screen. Where's the camera? Okay.
There it is.
Okay, so the first book was Fallen Star.
Yeah.
Second book is Dark Star, and they are definitely designed to work together. When this is all done, our current plans are 5 books. So give us probably about 2 years to finish the remaining 3 books. Book number 3 actually will be available on Amazon Kindle very shortly, the first issues. So that's a digital release. That comes before the print release, but the print release is the really big one. So that's what we're excited about. Every episode is going to take Aurora a little closer to her destiny, a little bit better understanding of who she really is, and then also some bigger conflicts. The conflicts are very small in Dark Star. The stakes get very large as it gets more cosmic in scale. So just be prepared. What you're seeing in Dark Star is the first step into a more cosmic challenge. And the consequences of what happens in this book are really important for what happens next.
See, that sounds like a line from Star Wars. You've just taken your first steps into a large universe.
There you go. Exactly. So I encourage everybody to take the step, read Dark Star, and you'll get it's a great stepping off point, to your point, for what's coming, and maybe get a sense of who this character is.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I have been lucky enough to read issues 1 through 3. So I have to say it is a blast from page 1 all the way through. There is not a dull moment. It's a fun book. The tone for a light-hearted family read is spot on. There are action scenes. It works. It's not gratuitous in any way. It is what it is. It's comic book art. It's well colored. The letters are perfect. It flows. It doesn't detract from the art. The writing has some absolutely lovely nuanced bits that just scream sort of that tween, sort of like romance, and focus on different aspects and trying to juggle different aspects of your life and so on. James, I was very, very impressed. Very impressed. Well done. Very much. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Johnny. I'd look forward to hearing more about it, hearing from fans in the UK. I'd love to hear what they think.
Excellent. Well, I will make sure that the book gets an advance review on our sister site, Comic Crusaders. I may even review it myself. There you go.
Personal touch. Get those pencils.
Get
those fingers limbered up.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my typing socks. That's all I've got to say.
I want to encourage everybody to visit our website. If you want to learn more about the characters and the series, you can visit our website. You can get some previews of the book before you buy it. There's some preview pages.
There you go, at the bottom of the screen. You've got your socials there, as well as the what did I have earlier? I had the main website running as well. There you go, at the bottom. There you go.
StarRunnerComics.com. Yep. And we post preview pages. If you want to see what's coming, get on our Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and we post artwork in production. So you see some of the great artists' work and books that are coming out in the next 6 months.
Excellent. Okay, so there you go. Fantastic new book that's coming out in a couple of months. Keep it on CC for the review, and don't forget UCPN to check out all your favorite shows, including Flipside Focus, where we focus on indie books. James, if you're up for that, we'll certainly have you back on Flipside when the book hits, so you can talk some more about your book. That'd be fantastic. You meet Josh, who absolutely loves indie books. He's a indie book aficionado. And of course, you saw the advert earlier, the fantastic Old Timers Comic Book Show, if you're wanting something that's a little bit more old school. So you want to find out what John Byrne's all about? Old Timers is where you want to go.
He's the guy who's going to talk about it.
Yeah.
Well, I love it's been fun talking with you, Johnny, and I look forward to seeing some of their sites. Yeah, that's great stuff. We're indie. We're absolutely indie. The definition, the books are done right here in this room. So that's about as big as it gets.
Excellent. All right, guys, don't forget to keep your UC pen for all your favorite shows. James, thanks very much. Really appreciate it. I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. And as always, adios.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.shop, all about comic pop culture.